Hey everybody, how's it going? I hope you're having a lovely day. On this channel, I talk a lot about right to repair, which is the idea that you should be able to repair what you own and that we should not become a society that throws things away when something very small goes wrong with them. It's a waste of resources, and in my opinion, it's just a waste of intellectual capital to not use our brains to try and make things work again. And there's an article that I was reading that I thought was really interestingly written, because it's written from the point of view that repair is bad because of how it is going to affect low-income people, particularly black people. And I just thought that this was such a bad argument, and I wanted to read it to you and give you some of my insights into it. This says, right to repair movement could risk patient care for disadvantaged communities, and it's talking over here about how if a tablet or a cell phone malfunctions, no big deal, but if a sophisticated medical device doesn't work because of a hospital that chose a third-party repair, it could be life or death. He talks about a report that shows that hospitals with large shares of African-American patients have significant funding disparities and receive lower payments for care from programs like Medicare. Unfortunately, these facilities are the ones that would most likely use the unregulated repair option to fit necessary maintenance into tight budgets. Therefore, we could be unintentionally putting our community on the front lines of the increased risk that a broad right to repair policy would enable. And this is one of the things that my personal trainer and good friend talks about a lot. He has a YouTube channel I will link to over here for anybody who's interested in it. And we used to talk about a lot of these issues. He is half black, and he would give me a lot of insight on things that I didn't really have insight on as somebody who just didn't have that level of experience in the community. And I forget if it was him saying it or citing somebody else who said it, but there's this thing that really bothered him and his friends and pissed him off, and it was something called Black Lives Marketing, which is where you're trying to make money. You don't necessarily care about that particular community, but you're using that community as a means to promote your own agenda so that you can get what you want or so that you can make money. It's kind of like when a bank puts, like a rainbow flag up for a week every year. It's like, do they really care about that community, or are they trying to cash in on the fact that pandering will make them more money? And that's the thing that when I read an article like this that aggravates me so much about it. So I think we should just go through it point by point. So the first is, at one point in this article, he cites the FDA, and he cites by granting open access to repair shops unregulated, we could be undermining device integrity maintained by the whole regulatory system. Let's just take a look at what the FDA had to say about this in its own report. This came out in May of 2018 when right to repair started to become more and more popular. FDA report on the quality, safety, and effectiveness of servicing medical devices. The currently available objective evidence is not sufficient to conclude whether or not there's a widespread public health concern related to servicing, including by third-party servicers of medical devices. Rather, the objective evidence indicates that many OEMs and third-party entities provide high-quality, safe, and effective servicing of medical devices. And the part that I find to be the most important over here is the continued availability of third-party entities to service and repair medical devices is critical to the functioning of the U.S. healthcare system. Don't trust me. I don't work on medical devices for a living. That's not my field. That's not my industry. The FDA. The FDA is saying right here, the continued availability of third-party entities to service and repair medical devices is critical to the functioning of the U.S. healthcare system, right there on page 1 of their own report. The second thing that I think is really important to go over is that I think he's only looking at one side of the coin here, and I think we know why he's doing that. When you take a look at Open Secrets over here, and you take a look at who this person is lobbying on behalf of, you find a very interesting list over here. You find a healthcare company as well as a private prison, which again, when we're talking, by the way, we're talking about people that disadvantage minority communities. How about we talk a little bit about the private prison industry, the people that have been, lobbying in favor of mandatory minimums and higher sentences when they also make more money off of more people being in prison. But that's a point for another video. If we go back to the topic we're talking about over here, it talks a lot about the risks of third-party repairs in hospitals that serve African-American communities, but it's really not looking at the other side of the coin here. Hospitals with limited budgets cannot afford to simply buy a new one anytime there's a problem. There's a video I did on this channel a while ago where the person's talking about some of the beds you may see at the hospital where they have those little buttons on the side that allow you, or the remote control that allows the doctor to kind of move the patient back and forth and stuff like that. And this is done by a motor. Now, this is a $25,000 to $35,000 product, and they don't make the motor available. When the motor dies, you have to buy a new one at another $25,000 to $35,000. If you are a hospital in a community that is disadvantaged or that doesn't have a high budget, we're pretending here that if you don't fix, it's either one of two things. Either you get it fixed by the manufacturer and it works, or you get it fixed by somebody else and it doesn't work. But we're ignoring two main things here. A, third-party repairs, as the FDA said, are good. But aside from that, if you're a hospital in a disadvantaged community, you're probably not paying $35,000 to replace a bed that has a bad motor. You may just take that out of service, and now instead of having a hospital that has a capacity to service 800 people, your hospital can only service 799 people. When you are on a tight budget, when you don't have the money to replace things, that doesn't, again, there is a downside to that as well. The idea that we are only going to go with the manufacturer-provided solutions, it doesn't mean that everything is safe. It means that we are now less safe because we have less capacity for care. When that hospital has a piece of equipment that they cannot afford to service and they cannot afford to replace, that hospital now has a piece of equipment that is likely being thrown away, tossed into a closet somewhere, or not used. That is going to reduce patient capacity and, more importantly, the quality of care available to all patients. Above all, the point that offends me about this article is how they're really trying to pull at your heartstrings by talking about how this is really going to be disadvantageous to the Black community. This is going to hurt people in minority communities, and I really care about people in minority communities, which is why I lobby on behalf of private prisons like CoreCivic. Like, sorry, man, I just don't believe you. I don't believe you. You tell me if you think I'm going a little too far here. I don't believe it. I think that this is a person that has a specific narrative. I think this is a person that had a lot of experience in politics that is now selling that experience to the highest bidder, whether it is a healthcare company that may have a incentive structure for right to repair to not pass, or a private prison, which again, if we want to talk about the people that really disadvantage Black communities, your words ring hollow, man. And if you really want to learn more about this, I would also suggest watching this video I did with a medical expert named Bill Bassick. He runs a school here in Texas that teaches biomedical technicians how to carry on his craft. He goes over a lot of the misconceptions when it comes to medical right to repair, what it is we're asking for, and how it is third parties in the medical repair space do business. If you're interested in any of this, I highly suggest that you listen to this interview. I was humbled and honored to have the opportunity to travel 300 miles to be able to speak to him for 30 minutes. I learned a lot, and I hope that the people who watch his video also learn a lot and learn how to combat a lot of the misinformation and fear, uncertainty, and doubt tactics that you'll hear from professional lobbyists and shills that try to scare you out of the idea that we should be a society that actually fixes things rather than throw away $100,000 pieces of equipment whenever there's a problem. If you think that there are problems with third parties fixing equipment, wait till hospitals in disadvantaged communities just start throwing the stuff out and having less capacity altogether because they can't afford to buy a new one every single time a $200 part dies in that piece of equipment. As much as I think this man's argument is completely ridiculous, I can at the very least give 1 point for actually creating one to begin with. One of the things that I mentioned 3.5 years ago is that this is not new. In this video, lobbyists imply right to repair helps domestic abusers and pushes racism and redlining. I was watching an advertisement that was implying that you are going to get stalked and then sexually assaulted in a parking lot if a mechanic of your choice can work on your vehicle. And then over here, I went to the website for Coalition of Safe and Secure Data, which has since been taken down, but luckily I have a screenshot of it, who says, who is against the proposal? And I quote, civil rights groups also oppose the California proposal due to concerns about racism and redlining. They didn't even say what it was. Like, what about being able to choose who works on your car? What about right to repair? What about making parts and diagnostic software available to the owner as well as the independent mechanics would result in racism and redlining? Who knows? Like, they didn't even try. They just threw the words out there. So at least now what they're doing is they're trying to craft a narrative that's like semi-believable. Those poor hospitals and those communities are the ones that are going to have the worst effects when you have an idiot repairing things, completely ignoring the fact that when you're broke, that's when it's most important to fix things, because if you don't, they're going to get thrown away. But at the very least, he tried it. Like, he tried it. I can appreciate that he tried it rather than just throwing racism, redlining, bad out there and expecting that that by itself will do it. He at least seems to be working for his money, which is more than I can say for Coalition for Safe and Secure Data that received over $5 million for the garbage you'll see in that video. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. That's it for today. And as always, I hope you learned something. I'll see you all in the next video. Bye now.